conversation is one that you're definitely not going to want to miss. When I think about joy, there are a couple people that come to mind, and today's guest is one of them. Today, I got the opportunity to sit down and have a candid conversation with Kimberly Joy Morgan. She's the owner and founder of Do All Things with Joy. And in our conversation today, we talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about betting on yourself, following your passions, and learning from obstacles and using them to catapult us into a new direction. And honestly, I was taking notes. I left the conversation feeling very inspired, and I know that you will. Someone that I've had the pleasure of knowing for years and who has really encouraged me in my own personal journey towards joy and freedom. And I know that you're going to love getting to know her. Mrs. Kimberly Joy Morgan, welcome. Thank you for joining
Thank
us
you.
today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. Absolutely.
Yes, I was, the invite, that was my invite. Like, I hope she says yes. I understand if it doesn't work, but I'm gonna just shoot my shot. So I appreciate you for saying yes to this opportunity. Honestly, when I think of joy, not only is joy a part of your name, it really is who you are. And I absolutely love that about you. And I'm excited about our conversation today and just hearing what you've been up to and a little bit about your journey.
Absolutely. I'm here for you.
Yeah, how we've been starting this podcast recently is just getting to know the individual. So, of course, we'll talk about what you do and what you're passionate about, but I never want it to be focused on our work. Sometimes we are super passionate about our employment and our work and things that generate income, but sometimes we just need to start from base level, like who are we as people,
Mhm.
individuals outside of what we do and the roles that we hold. And so I'm just Mrs. Kimberly Joy is, how would you describe the younger version of yourself? Now, it could be elementary school or it could just be a couple versions of Kimberly back in the day as
Yeah.
compared to now. How would you describe your younger self?
I'm pretty much the same. I was spunky and adventurous. I don't know, athletic, just someone who's always inquisitive. I hope I have matured in my life. And of course I'm not. But when I think about, like, I have a picture of myself, I probably was, I don't know, maybe two and a half. It's basically the same person. I'm like, that's the same me. Like it. So how I came out is kind of how I
I love that.
So yeah, no, I there were phases and spaces of me being coming into myself, and of course, middle school, high school, things like that. Always, weird years of life. But when I think back to like my 2-year old to 5-year old self and that developmental state, I'm pretty much the same.
Love that. I always like to hear what people say because, a lot of times, who we go through all these little ebbs and flows and dips and twists and turns in life. And then we end up right back where we were, once we get our joy, our freedom, once we kind of get the residue of life over from on top of us, excuse me. And
Yeah.
I love that you're the same. Very
Yeah.
consistent. I would say that definitely tracks because
Yeah.
I mean, even when I met you, oh my goodness, I'm trying to remember the first time I met you. I can't remember the exact moment, but I definitely know that every time that I've encountered you, it has been just like a very curious, nurturing, very authentic, grounded. I would say I would describe you as grounded for
Okay.
sure, just like grounded in who you are and what you bring to the room, which is a lot of joy.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, no, I haven't really, like I said, it's, we all have different ebbs and flows with
Yeah.
life. But when I think back to my younger self and all of the things that I used to do and still do, and, love to dance, love to be, I'm not one of those people that's the life of the party in the sense that I come in and I'm like, hey, look at me. And like, that's not that. But I don't need any drinks. I don't need any, like, to have a good time, to have fun, to go out and just enjoy life. That's my things. I'm always about, I'll drop in a hat and go travel or do something, go, I don't know. The other day I was like, I just want to go do pottery for the first time, or I want to go glass blowing, or I want, like, I'll just do stuff like that. So
Hey.
I'm that kind of person where it's just, and I go by myself. I don't need anybody to go with me. So I'm just that type of person.
I think that's great. Trying new things, adventurous. I would say adventurous makes sense as well. I've seen you do roller skating. I've seen you do, of course, theater, acting, modeling. I mean, they're just, and then you're so humble about it, Kimberly. Like you really are, but you want people to know what's going on, but not in a braggadocious way at all. And so, and it's always giving praise to God, for the opportunities. But it's like, I think I just saw Kimberly in a commercial for like in downtown Greenville somewhere or in Florida. Is she on that? Is that her on a billboard? Kind of like in an ad campaign. And it's just like, praise to God. And I just
Yeah.
love that about you. How did you find
Thank
yourself in those spaces? Because I know you said you had a theater background,
you. Hmm.
or you mentioned that just now. How did you find yourself on this journey of exploring a variety of different creative outlets?
I really feel like it was in, like, my dad was a very adventurous kind of person, and I mean, he was like from someone who taught me how to knit. Like, not my mother, my dad taught me how to knit, and was a, like, Rose Society president in Greensboro, and then flew helicopters, and what else, was a FBI agent. And I mean, like, you couldn't put like him in a box. He repelled, he, cycled. I mean, there was just all kinds of things. So I think seeing his life and how he did things was just kind of like, oh, that's my daddy. Like, I kind of want to do some of the same things, and that adventurous spirit and DNA kind of got in me. My mother used to say that all the time. She was like, "You just like your daddy," not in a bad way, but it was just like, because she was very not opposite, but just wasn't the same way that she was now. I maybe got her love for travel from her, because my dad's not a big, like, he doesn't really want to go places like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think growing up and seeing, even though my dad wasn't intentional about that with me, in the sense of saying, baby, you got to learn how to, it just was, I saw it. And so kind of took off in that way. And so for me, it was always about trying the things that I wanted to. And either if I tried it and I liked it, I would keep with it and develop it. And if I tried it and I absolutely hated it, then I was just like, that was good try. And I'm not really, I don't want to play baseball or softball anymore. So I tried it once and I was like, lovely, don't like it, next, right? Played basketball for a year, lovely, didn't like it, next. I think that's the part of just having an adventurous spirit and seeing, just like I said, like last month, I was like, I want to see if I like pottery. I loved it. You know what I'm saying? It was one of those things that you just have to sometimes go out and just try it. And then you figure out if that's something you want to do or not. So I think it was more seeing it in my dad's life, and innately just kind of started doing those types of things myself.
That's so interesting because I love people like you because it gives others who are maybe like a little bit more reserved, like they did it, I can do it too. Because I would definitely say I'm interested, but going from interest to doing is definitely a little bit of a leap. So, how did you get comfortable? I mean, of course, your dad played a major role in your love for trying new things and that adventure that's in you. But how did you navigate when something you tried maybe didn't work out? Did you ever see that as a negative and have to reframe that? Or did you see it as like, oh, that's not my thing, but I'm still okay. Let me keep moving. Because, sometimes people can see that, oh, failed, like, and label that as failure and then take, retreat instead of trying again for something that might be new.
It's interesting because when you say that, I'm trying to think like something that I tried that I failed at. And I guess I don't see failure, like I tell my kids this all the time. I just see failure as a way to learn something, right? To be like, I never really fail. I just, this is not my quote for anyone who's hearing it, but it's, I either succeed or I learn, right? Like that's the basis of what it is. I think that was Nelson Mandela. I'm not quite sure, but Google it. But in that space of whatever that is, I think, I found out that I may not like something,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't necessarily know if I have a thing where I allow that to make me feel in any kind of way that something was wrong. Or, I went to school for journalism. I got to UNC Chapel Hill thinking I wanted to be a journalist. I am not a great speller, just have never been. Like, I don't know what it is about it, but it is, thank God I live in the the time that I live in, with all of the Grammarly and everything that's there.
Love grandma.
Like, it makes life a lot easier for me this day and age. But I realized, like, to become a journalist, you had to actually be a really good speller. It was
Mm.
you had to pass a spelling test. And not that I never even took it, because then I took a class at Carolina that was in communication performance, and I realized I really like this better. So I've always found in ways where maybe some of my weaknesses, I tend to, when I realize that something is a weakness, I will expose it so that I'm not trying to hide what this is. Like, even when I facilitate or I do something, I'll tell people, I'm like, I am not a great speller. So if you notice that something is up here wrong, correct me. It's not going to make me mad, and then I put my business in the streets. Well, at this point, you can't really talk about me because I talked about myself.
So good.
Before somebody has to call it out, I'll call it out, and be that person. So when I think about failure, somebody would be like, oh, well, you went to school for this and you ended up not doing it. I was like, no, it was a pivot for me, because I realized I didn't want to struggle. Like, I'm about to go into a career that I'm not naturally good at this. So now I'm going to constantly be in a state of like panic, because this is something I have to do. And at that time, it really didn't exist. Right. And so it was that space for me where I just was like, I didn't consider it a failure. I considered it understanding what my strengths and my talents were, so that I could pivot into something that was better. So, I don't know if that helps, but anything that I've tried, or like, the second piece of pottery that we got to make, like three different pieces in this time frame of learning. The second piece came out hideous. Thank goodness we only get to choose two, because I was like, that's that. But I didn't. I just laughed at it, because I was like, I don't know all the techniques. I was trying to like lift the pottery up, and I ended up like almost poking a hole in it, and it was funny to me. I laugh at myself in some instances. So I think that would be the way that I'd say I handled failure, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think that failure really is just a perspective, right? I don't really feel I love the reference point of Nelson Mandela and like just learning from opportunities that may not suit you,
Hmm. Hmm.
My mom is really big into words of affirmations. And one thing that she was trying to help my sister and I through was like that concept of strengths and what people would call weaknesses. She actually doesn't call them weaknesses, she calls them lesser strengths. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm. Yep.
when and that's so helpful, just even verbiage changes around what we label things are as, or excuse me, what we label things as, like you're not failing, you're learning, you're not
Hmm.
weak in this area, is something that a strength that can be developed, or
Development area.
right, it's not
Yeah.
a loss, it's just an opportunity. Like in corporate
Yeah.
America, wins and opportunities.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So reframing, I feel like that's what I'm hearing from you. Just like reframing how you view even obstacles, maybe not obstacles, not seeing them as obstacles, but opportunities for growth. Would you say that you've overcome, not getting in the theme of like not calling them obstacles, but how have you seen yourself rise above the growth opportunities that you've experienced, even as you come to know more about yourself or progress in your life, or as a mom, as a wife, as a business owner? Have you had those growth moments that, or does one come to mind that you can maybe share that you've kind of learned along the way?
When I think about growth, I want to always grow. So I look at most opportunities as growth opportunities. I think I've become very, very comfortable with who I am and what it is that I like. I used to be concerned about what other people thought about me. Did they like me? Do I need to kind of conform to, the way in which they want to, that I think that box that they want to put me in. And so I was try to be that sometimes for people. I have grown in that I do not care. I have a tribe of people that I love, that love me, that I'm going to show up as me in all events and all places. From when I'm doing corporate facilitation and leadership, of course, you play a part. I'm not going to come in and just be as casual as I am with my girlfriend traveling to Cartagena, South America, and chilling. But I'm also going to have moments where you're going to just see authentically who I am. But I wasn't always that way. I mean, I think about my teens, especially my early teens. I started coming out of it more in like my mid-teens. And now that I'm getting close to 50, I'm sitting here and I really am at that place where the growth of understanding, like, I like who God has created me to be.
Mm.
Like, I truly think that I don't need to be somebody else to, but I also know I'm not everyone's cup of tea and not everybody's my cup of tea. So I'm cool with that, right? Like, so it's like I know, I realize I don't have to be somebody else. And if you're not vibing with me, I'll always keep it cordial and kind, but we don't have to be besties, right? You know what I mean? So I think that that has the growth in that of being like, I'm okay if I'm not like one of this person that everybody wants to be around. I have a pretty good tribe. So yeah, that would probably be one of the biggest areas of just being comfortable in my own skin, how I show up, all of that.
And that's actually, I love that you said that. I do think that that's a space I'm growing in. I think with life experience that helps a lot. Just you haven't done the same thing your whole life. You've tried new things. You open yourself up to new learning opportunities, etc. But I also think that, there's a level of that wrestling is I feel like it's good to have that wrestling. Like, should I care? Should I not care? Just for self awareness, but not so that it's crippling,
Mm-hmm.
not so that
Mm-hmm.
it's crippling where you can't be your authentic self. I've actually heard from a friend about a week ago. We just sat down for, just after work, sat on the couch and just caught up. And she's a couple years younger than me. And we were talking, and she literally was talking about things that, like, I get, but I was so glad that I was not there anymore.
Anymore.
I wanted to be so empathetic, like, I know, friend, I know. But I was like, God, thank you that
Yes.
I've
Yes.
passed that obstacle, or that I've grown from that place. Because, we were talking about a lot of things, purpose being one of them, but discovering, like, I'm getting back to what you said about just being comfortable being yourself and knowing who you are when you show up in a room, and who's for you, and
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily who is not for you, but also whose opinion doesn't really
Yeah.
matter. Love
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Their opinion
Mm-hmm.
really doesn't dictate how I show up. And I love that. And I was trying to encourage her in that, like, you will figure it out. But sometimes when you're in it, it just feels so big.
It does, yeah. But she will, and then that's part of the whole journey. I mean, that's
Right.
that's the part of it, is that you can't rush it out of it. You know, sometimes you think the piece of advice or whatever. Sometimes somebody has to just walk through it to be able to develop their character, develop, their fortitude, to strengthen themselves. Like, I wish I could go and sometimes run or take a test for my son or do something, because I want to take the weight off of him. I know that that weight is only building him up for what he needs later in life. And if I step in and change that, then I'm actually creating a weaker vessel. And so you sometimes just have to let somebody carry the weight.
Okay, let me find my notebook so I can take personal development notes. No, but you're right. So, I mean,
Yeah.
you mentioned your sons. You have amazing sons. I've
Oh, thank
literally
you.
seen them grow up before my eyes. I'm pretty
Yes, you
sure
have.
that Jai was like 7 when I met you guys, like, so young, maybe younger than
Hmm.
that.
I know, probably. I was like 3 or 4, something like that.
Probably so. I think so.
Because we knew each other. I'm just trying to make sure, before I moved to Philly. Didn't we know each other before Philly moved, or did we not?
Feel like I did. And then you guys moved and then
Moved
came
and then you
back.
came back. So you did. So if that was the case, he was only 5 when we left.
Cool. I
Yeah.
think when I connected with Kia for the first time, she might have been watching them. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that's when I saw them, like, up close. And I'm
Yes.
like, they
Yeah.
were very small, very
Uh-huh.
small.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting because you mentioned, like, seeing your sons grow and develop and learn. I was just listening to a talk where someone else, like a mother, was talking about her son and just really sharing about, like, the benefits of allowing those, I mean, maybe your son, but also those in your sphere of influence, like, learn.
Mhm.
and not doing things for them so that they can grow and rise up and like exercise those strengthened muscles. How important is it to you as a mom, but also as a coach and speaker, to identify areas for people, like if they're coming to you for advice, right? Okay, I need help with this. I really need to know what I should do. And they kind of are leaning on you to help them with it. How do you empower those around you, including your boys, to really dig deep within themselves if they're having a challenge? Like, where is that balance between helping someone and like hindering them in their growth?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as a coach, we're really not, when you're coaching, if I'm consulting, it's a whole different. If you hire me to be a consultant, I'm supposed to be giving you answers. But as a coach, I'm really supposed to be asking you questions that allow you to probe. And so I try to approach my kids, I try to approach family members and friends, anyone that comes to me with just deeper probing questions so that you can come up with what sits right for you, right? Because if you know, solving a problem of time management, I mean, I can tell you how I manage my time, but that might not be the best solution for how you need to manage your time. Like, you know,
Right.
I'm a old fashioned, I'm leaning over here. I'm an old fashioned plan it out,
Planner.
write it out, journal it. I mean, I have my electronics, trust me, because I need things, you know, at my fingertips, but I do both. Whereas like, you know, my husband may say that seems like a waste of time. For me, it's not, because I can see the map, I can visualize my week a lot better than on some kind of digital platform. So I say all of that to say, you know, I can only provide you with an example, but
Hmm.
my thing is, the more I can probe and ask questions and have you work through the answer, whether it be, like I said, a kid or whether it be a client, the more you're going to learn it, and you're also going to identify with it, and you're going to own it. And so that ownership, I think, is important. And so I think I try my best as a coach, mentor in what I do, to ask probing questions of people.
That and you're right, it is important. The art of asking questions, I feel like it is sometimes an art in and of itself, because it does cause people to, in a non-accusatory way, it can cause people to like truly sit and think and reflect and
Mhm.
come up with the answer that probably was always there before, that might be clouded. I like that. I like that. I'm just taking notes over here, getting a little personal development. We learning about ownership and asking, the art of asking questions and taking chances. Would you say, what would be the biggest chance that you've taken on yourself? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but you mentioned so much growth that you've experienced throughout your life and new things that you've, tried. What's the biggest one that you feel like maybe has changed the trajectory of where you are on your journey? Or do you have two?
I think I have to give two, and
Yes,
they're
please.
very much related. When I left Carolina in '99, graduated, went and started working for Ernst and Young as a consultant, making a decent amount of money coming out of college. I think my dad, when he saw my offer letter, was like, "I think you're making more than I made." You know, very like it was. You know, he was like, "You're very close to my salary when I retired." So that was the guy. So, you know, that type of thing. Where my dad's, of course, I mean, he started working in the '60s, but that space of saying, "Wow, that's what I'm coming out of school with." So I took a bet on myself, because I didn't, you know, not speaking badly at all about the company that I worked for. I enjoyed Ernst and Young while I was there. I learned a lot. I'm thankful for the experience, the people that I worked with. But I knew I was slightly dying inside, because I'm an artist. I'm a multi-passionate artist. I knew that I couldn't do, even though I had worked my way into more of a creative role in HR, so to speak, did some, you know, other thing. It wasn't going to do it. It wasn't going to happen for me. And so I ended up leaving and trying to act full time, right? You know, and I did that for a long time, from 2003 until 2007, full time. That was what I did, right? And I taught aerobics and things, you know, to supplement, to keep myself healthy. And so it was kind of all a path of where I, have landed to today. But then in the same breath, learning that after I had my son and we had many miscarriages. So the fact that I had had so many miscarriages, the gravity of finally having my firstborn, Jai, who we were just kind of talking about, I have two sons, Israel and Jai, was where I didn't want to mess this up. I was like, it kind of makes me tear up a little bit, but I was like, this matters to me,
Right, right.
raising good kids.
Yes.
And I'm someone who will cry, so you know that about me. I don't care. Like I said, it's who I am.
I love it. I love
Um,
it.
but that was very huge for me. And so the next chance that I was like, okay, Mark, I'm gonna be a stay-at-home mom. Like I went and did this, and now it's time for me to take a bet on doing this. And yes, people were like, oh, it's career suicide. These are the best years of your life. You're gonna be able to, you're not gonna act the same way, or you're not gonna, be able to get a job with corporate America again, or all the things that go on. But I was like, but I gotta do what I know that God's calling me to do. And
Yes.
so for that, it was like, those two moments of leaving the money, and then not that I was ever like stupid rich as an actress, but I had made a good, I always tell people, I'm like, the life of an actress is not always or actor, unless you're an A-list celebrity, you really aren't making a lot of money. Even people who you see in movies that are not A-listers are still there. You'd be very surprised. It's not as I mean, it's more glamorous than it is financially lucrative.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so I try to tell people all the time, I'm like, it's a love and it's a passion. So I say that to say that is for me the two things that I had to kind of step out on and do. And I'm so grateful on both of them, because acting has come full circle as
Mhm.
I'm a commercial actor now and doing things and loving it. And then my sons, I would like to say, and I think I'm grateful to God that their direction and what they've done, they love the Lord. They are very smart kids. I have had no teenage trouble, none of the things that people, I praise God for that. I don't take that as, a pat on my back. I'm thankful because, I always say, therefore, the grace of God go I, in the sense of, or them in that sense. But I'm
Yes.
just grateful for this kind of, in the sense, the sacrifice or the letting something go to take that on. So I think those are my two biggest things that I ever did that was just like, I'm going to bet on me in those, in that regard. Bet on God, but meaning like on what he's telling me to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing because I'm just, when you do take that step, I can only imagine that it was scary. And you mentioned the negative chatter. You had probably external negative chatter and internal negative chatter. This is safety, this is security, this is a sure thing. You mentioned making a good amount of money in that corporate direction you were going. Then the pivot. So let's just call you the pivot mistress, like the master maestro, because you have pivoted, ma'am. And then pivoting and prioritizing family. I love that because there are so many people, my sister included, that have made that pivot at a very high cost,
hmm
what people would call a high cost professionally, but it was very much in alignment with what their assignment was for that moment.
hmm
And I love the fact that you mentioned that it came full circle. Your boys, who are men now, they
Yes,
are
they
they
are.
are men that love their family, that love the Lord, that are on a path. Your husband and yourself had a huge impact. I mean, you stewarded them for those years, right? And now you're able to start veering back into the lane that you're passionate about. But I love that just like there's an art to discovering oneself and being on that self-reflective journey, there's an art to a pivot as
Yeah, and I mean,
well.
and it's funny because I'm even pivoting more. Like as I started as a health coach, kind
Hmm.
of went into health coaching, life coaching, and now I've joined forces with somebody, and I'm doing more leadership coaching and going back into corporate America again, but on my terms and the way that I want. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
Yes.
God's like, and making good money doing that. So it's all of the things where he's like, you, if I'm telling you to go, I'm telling you to do these things, you pray and you fast about it and you know that you've heard, even when it looks like that's the dumbest decision you could ever make, right? Like, I honestly, and Marcus would probably agree, I was probably making as much as he was or more when I left Ernst& Young. So you're talking about a really good corporate job. And then I have a really great husband who was like, We'll make it work on, we'll make it, like, we always budgeted our household for one income,
Sure.
but it does, when you slice it in half, whether you budgeted it or not, all your extras and your fun go out the window. And so I say all of that to say, he brought it full circle in the sense of then building up and being like, okay, I'm a working actress, and I'm going to go to really, pinching pennies. We're adding a whole nother person in the house and all of the things. But I'm just grateful that I listened, because, like I said, now I'm seeing all of the pieces come together. And so, as I say, for people, when young people, I'm on the Carolinas Honors Board right now, and a lot of the kids will come up and ask me questions. And I say, I know it sounds scary, and I know it's not always the easiest, because your parents are saying, find a stable job, find security, find this and that and the other. And I said, I'm not saying to not find a career that will sustain your life, but also follow your passion, because the money will come. If you're absolutely miserable in something, but you love fashion, or you love working with kids, or you love, like, you're smart, you can find ways to make
Mhm.
that transpire in that way, as long as what you're doing brings you joy. I always say the money will come. I mean, there are people who make puzzles for a living, and they're millionaires because they love puzzles, right? Like, who would have thought the parent would have said, "You're going to be a puzzle maker?" But there's a market for it. That puzzle's been around forever, right? So I always say, if it's your passion and you really love it, the money will come.
That is, I feel like that's a great place to land. That's a wonderful place to land. I think passion, what I'm taking away from this conversation is passion, betting on yourself, betting on God, betting on yourself, and then just,
Mhm.
and being, staying curious as to, who you are becoming,
Mhm.
what interests you, and being open to new things. I think that
Absolutely.
is what I'm taking away from this conversation. Just like, even in the short amount of time, I'm like, okay, I have a running list of what I learned from today. I have two wrap up questions, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
You mentioned being interested in pottery right now, but what else are you doing to cultivate joy in your personal life?
I really just like, nature for me is huge. I love taking walks daily. And for me, it is finding a picture. I kind of make it as a purpose. I always try to find something that captures my attention, whether it's a squirrel or a dragonfly or a tortoise, or, I mean, I happen to live in a place where we have a lot of wildlife, or a leaf that's a particular color. So for me, cultivating joy is being present,
Mhm.
and finding those moments to be present and to see what's around me and to discover. So it doesn't have to be where I have to go and pay for money to do something. It can be in my day to day. So that's one way that I cultivate joy. But I also make a bucket list of things I want to do in the year. That
That
is, like, every year I have, like, so this year we're only on month 3. I went to Cartagena, South America in January, and it was like a 3-day trip where it was just a backpack and, like, let's go explore. So, and then I told you in February I did the pottery. And so, this month it's either going to be glass blowing or creating. There's a rug that you can create out of, it's a different kind of class. And so I was just like, never tried it. Why not? So that's what I'll be doing. Yeah.
love that. I love that. I feel like you've already given us so much advice that anyone watching would be so benefited by. But specifically, what advice would you give to someone who is struggling to live authentically? And for me, I think that joy comes from authenticity. You might have a different definition of joy, but what would you say to that person who is struggling to just be comfortable in their own skin and live in an authentic manner?
The biggest thing to me is find out who God says that you are. Really read the word to know who he designed you and how great you are, in the sense that, you were made after his image, and that cultivating that relationship and understanding his promises, because you pray his promises, he cannot lie. I mean, that is a foundational truth. So being patient as well with yourself and your development, but understanding who you are, I think, is at the core of that. And to understand that, you have to understand from I always say, the manufacturer, how you were created and who you were actually created to be. And once you have that, I don't think anything can stand in your way once you get a full grasp and understanding of that. But it'll take study and it takes time. And it takes also sitting with yourself and working through those limiting beliefs. And so I encourage people to do the work because it takes it. And sometimes it's hiring a coach. Sometimes it's, having a trusted friend, that space of doing the work and understanding who he created you to be. You'll get there.
Love that. That was great advice. As we wrap up, I always like to share resources, any material, anything that you have going on that others can benefit, even consulting and leadership development. How can they connect with you, Miss Kimberly Joy?
Absolutely. So my website, doallthingswithjoy.com, has literally everything listed. So from the corporate side of things to the creative side of things to life coaching and health coaching. I also have a book, Share the Joy, 52 Weeks to Abundant Health, right there.
Good.
So I always tell people that's a great way to step through different health and life coaching practices 1 week at a time. And then, I'm part of my joy and happiness is not being on social media often. So I have a presence, but if you're waiting for me to drop stuff a lot on there, don't.
Website, guys, website.
Yeah, website.
Website book.
But
There
I
you
mean, I
go.
I am there. I mean, like I said, you can send me a DM. I do check those things, and material comes out when I feel inspired
Yeah.
to post it. But I would say if you really want to get in contact with me, though, with a website's the best way because it has my direct email. Yeah.
Love that. And okay, whenever we have an author on, I definitely want to gift a book. So when this posts, I will gift a book to, I have to put the details out, but I will gift a
There you
book.
go.
So I'll put the details in the description once this posts so that this can be a gift for 52 Weeks to Abundant Health. I had this copy and I was looking back through it because I've had it for a while and I'm like, yeah, need to regain some of these practices and reintegrate them back into my life. But Kimberly, you are literally such a joy. I am so grateful for you and the presence that you have had, not only on this episode of the podcast, but definitely in my life. Y'all, Kimberly has been there and has been a trusted voice in my life. And I've gone to her at some pivotal moments and gotten some really great advice. And also, she was an amazing life group leader. I was in her and Marcus's group, and I said, this is
Yeah.
what life groups are all about. This is what they're supposed to be.
Thank
So
you.
I'm just grateful for you. Thank you for visiting. Thank you for stopping
Wonderful.
by. And I'm so grateful for you. You guys, please go and check out all of Kimberly's resources. Do all things with joy. And until next time, don't forget to live in your fullest self, live joyfully, and practice freedom by living authentically. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.